It was a cold November afternoon, November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, when a quiet, ordinary-looking man walked into Portland International Airport and changed history. He wore a dark suit, black sunglasses, and carried a small briefcase, and when he bought a one-way ticket to Seattle for $20 in cash, he told the clerk his name was Dan Cooper. Later the press would call him D.B. Cooper, and no one could have guessed the storm he would bring. On Flight 305, he sat near the back in seat 18C, calm and polite, and after takeoff, he handed a folded note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. She thought it was a phone number until he told her to read it. "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb," he said softly. The note said exactly that. He had a bomb, and he wanted cash, parachutes, and a plane ready to fly him away. When Schaffner looked inside the briefcase, she saw red cylinders, wires, and a battery, enough to convince her that he meant business. He stayed quiet, ordered a bourbon and soda, and even tried to tip the flight attendant with the change. "Please, miss, be calm," he told her, and everyone tried to stay calm too. His list of demands was precise: $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, 2 main, 2 reserve, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle so the plane could leave immediately for Mexico City. He was polite but firm. "I want no arrests, no tricks," he said, and the crew and authorities treated it as real and dangerous. As the jet circled the Puget Sound for nearly 2 hours, nervous pilots spoke with air traffic control and the FBI worked to meet the demands. Even President Nixon was briefed. By 5:39 p.m., the Boeing 727 landed at Seattle, and all the passengers, 36 terrified and confused people, were let off onto the tarmac without knowing the full story. "We thought it was a joke at first," one passenger later said. "Then we saw the crew's faces." The money arrived in a Candace bank bag, exactly $200,000, and the FBI recorded every serial number. 4 parachutes were brought from the Cord Air Force Base and laid out for inspection. Cooper, who had been calm the whole time, asked to keep the pilots and a few crew members on board while the rest were released. "I will not harm anyone who behaves," he told the stewardesses, and they complied. At 7:40 p.m., the plane took off again, this time bound for Mexico City, but under very strange orders. Fly low, below 10,000 feet, keep speed under 200 knots, flaps at 15, landing gear down, and leave the rear air stair lowered in flight. The Boeing 727 could do this, and he demanded it would remain down. "Do exactly as I say," he warned, and the crew obeyed. Somewhere over the dark, rugged forests of southwestern Washington, around 8:13 p.m., the cockpit crew felt a pressure drop and a slight shudder in the tail. The warning light showed the rear air stair had been deployed. Flight attendant Tina Mucklow, the last person to see him, later said she watched him stand, tie a canvas bag of money to his waist with a parachute cord, strap on one of the main chutes, and step to the open rear door. "He didn't scream or run," Tina said. "He was calm. He just went out." The wind that night was vicious. Freezing temperatures, heavy rain, and near zero visibility made the jump almost suicidal. The crew watched, helpless, as a figure vanished into the black. The pilots circled and then continued to Reno, Nevada, where they landed at 10:15 p.m. Cooper was gone. On the back of the plane, they found only a single parachute, a tie clip, and the rope that had held the money bag. Everything else vanished into the night. The Federal Bureau of Investigation launched one of its largest manhunts ever. Helicopters, soldiers, dogs, and searchers scoured the rugged ground for miles in freezing rain. They found nothing. No body, no chute, no trace of the man who had walked on board as Dan Cooper. For years, the case spawned countless theories and suspects. In 1972, a man named Richard Floyd McCoy staged a nearly identical hijacking, but he was different enough that he was convicted and jailed, while Cooper's case remained unique. The FBI tracked more than 1,000 leads and investigated hundreds of suspects, but each promising lead ran cold. "We had 1,000 ways to try to catch him, and every one failed," an agent later said. Then, in February 1980, a strange twist. An 8-year-old named Brian Ingram dug a campfire pit on a sandbar near Vancouver, Washington, and found 3 bundles of rotten $20 bills, $5,800 in all, washed up and buried in the sand. When the serial numbers were checked, the FBI found a match. The bills came from the Cooper ransom. Some people shouted proof, while others insisted the money could have been washed downstream from another source. The discovery only deepened the mystery. Did Cooper fall into the river, losing most of the money to the water, or did he survive and hide some of the cash? Some experts said the odds of surviving that night were slim. Low altitude, heavy rain, cold, and the fact that Cooper had been described as a middle-aged man in a suit, not a trained parachutist. He probably died either at impact or soon after, one analyst suggested. But others point to details that don't fit the grave theory. He was calm and careful. He inspected parachutes and knew about the Boeing 727's aft stairs, an unusual piece of knowledge for a random criminal. Could he have been a military parachute jumper, an experienced skydiver, or someone who planned with military precision? Then there are the wild theories. Maybe he changed his name and vanished into a new life. Maybe he settled under an assumed identity with a small portion of the cash. Maybe he died and someone else found the bills and disposed of the rest. Or maybe the FBI never had the right man. Over the decades, suspects have ranged from pranksters to decorated pilots, and each new tip gave the public a fresh set of headlines and conspiracy threads. The press gave him the wrong name, D.B. Cooper, instead of Dan Cooper, and the misnomer stuck, turning the case into folklore. The FBI codenamed the case Norjack, short for Northwest Hijacking, and kept a file so long it filled rooms of agents' desks. In 2016, the FBI quietly closed the active investigation, saying they had exhausted leads. "We will always be grateful to the flight crew and passengers for their bravery that day," an FBI statement read. But after 45 years, the active pursuit is no longer productive. Still, the files remain open in the hearts of amateur sleuths and mystery lovers. So what really happened that bitter night? Did Cooper die in the storm, buried in mud and trees, his body never found? Or did he land somewhere cold and wet, crawl away, and outsmart the world for the rest of his life with $194,200 left in unspent ransom? Picture this: a lonely man, cold and bleeding, trying to find shelter under fir branches, the money soaked and heavy. Or picture him sipping cheap coffee in a cheap motel decades later, eyes gray and quiet, the money burned and the secret still warm. Both images chill you. The facts that we know are simple and brutal. Polite man, briefcase bomb, $200,000, jump into the dark, and then nothing. The rest is rumor and imagination. And the evidence? A handful of bills found on a riverbank in 1980 that matched the serial numbers, a few personal items on the plane, the story of a man who vanished but left an entire nation asking how. If you ask me, the truth is probably a mix of both. He may have made it out of the plane, but not far enough to survive the night, or he may have prepared expertly and escaped, but left most of the cash to chance and lost it to the river. Whatever the answer, D.B. Cooper became a mirror that shows what we fear about the unknown and what we love about a good story. A man who walked into an airport, asked for money, leapt into a storm, and disappeared like a ghost. So tell me in the comments, do you think he died that night, lost to the forest and river? Or do you think he survived and lived quietly with a hidden fortune? Like the video if you want more unsolved mysteries. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. I'll see you in the next one.